Well, welcome everyone to the next edition of Burn and Learn. I'm happy to be here. We are taping from downtown Leesburg at Rebellion Cigar Room. They've been gracious enough to continue to allow us to use their space. We absolutely appreciate the hospitality. A beautiful cigar room, a beautiful place to have conversations like this. So we're happy to be here. I want to, again, my name is Steve Mann, the co-host of Burn and Learn. Glad to be here. And my co-host, Chris, if you'd like to give a quick intro.
Yeah, my name is Chris. I'm the co-host of Burn and Learn.
And we have a special guest today. Madison Casanova is joining us as our guest. And Maddy, you want to give a few words?
I'm excited to be here. My name's Madison. I have known Steve, many years, since I was a child. I currently work in subcontracting for the government, and I went to VCU, graduated in 2021, and out in the big world.
Absolutely. And so we're excited to have Madison here today. She and I were talking a couple of months ago. I was sharing with her my thoughts and experiences thus far around the podcast. And I was just mentioning that one of the things we want to focus on during our conversations is to have a very diverse and varied view and guests. And so as I talked to her and learned more about some of the things we were chatting about, it became apparent that she would make a great guest to just walk through the concept of cutting and lighting a cigar, having that first experience. And so she very graciously offered to do that. So we're happy to have her here. And we're going to walk her through that process, right? You know, we always take an opportunity here to share a really good conversation over a nice stick. But we always want to make certain that part of what we're doing is imparting and educating folks on certain aspects of the cigar lifestyle. So we're happy to have her here and to walk her through this process. So with that being said, I'm certainly mindful of the selection for today. So I did select, at least for my stick, I've got a Davidoff Signature 6000, which is a 48 ring gauge Robusto. For Madison, she's got also a Davidoff Signature 2000, 43 ring gauge Corona. Light to medium body, which I think will be great for a first stick for her. And then Chris, what do you have? Also a Signature?
Yeah, it's a Signature number 2. It's a 6x38 Panatella.
Okay.
And so a little education. So cigars come in different sizes and shapes. The correct term, or not the term that's most commonly used, is vitola. That means it's the length and the thickness, which is the ring gauge. And so the 6000 is a Robusto, and then the 2000, I believe, right, is the Corona.
Correct.
And so each size kind of has their own names.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Cool. And that one's mine.
This is yours.
Okay.
So one of the things we also like to highlight is, you know, I've mentioned this on prior podcasts, is I'm very much engaged and interested in the ritual around the cigar smoking, right? So every time I go out or every time I sit with friends, I'm very focused on the selection of cigar, but I'm also focused on the cutter and lighter, the case, everything that goes with it, right? And so, you know, tonight we've got a very nice cutter that I'll give a quick overview on, as well as for St. Patrick's Day, I've got myself a green Davidoff lighter, which is kind of cool. a little theme going there, so that'll be nice for the St. Patrick's Day. So again, the cutter. This is this is from a company called Heirloom. This is a custom made in the States. The handles are made of titanium. The blades are made of Magna Cut. The wood inlays, probably kind of hard to see, come in several different color options. It's got a very nice weight to it. And again, very unique and unlike almost any other cutter that I've ever seen, right? Chris,
cool.
Have you seen anything like this before?
No.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So I want to thank Heirloom Cutters for allowing me to use this and allowing me to test it out. So this is what I'm going to use to cut. Chris, obviously, if you'd like to, you can use it as well.
Of course.
So I'm just going to go ahead, Madison, and cut both of ours.
Okay.
And while he's cutting, I can kind of talk about, so when you cut a cigar, so the cigar is made up of the wrapper, the binder, and the filler.
Okay.
And so the filler is where most of the it's long leaf tobacco, so it's an entire leaf, and the leaf gets bunched together with other leaves.
Okay.
And then there's a binder, and that's what kind of keeps the cigar together. And then you have the wrapper, which is the exterior.
Okay.
And that's supposedly where about 60% of the flavor comes from. And then
From the wrapper.
Yeah, from the wrapper.
Okay.
And at the top, typically what they do is they'll kind of glue. They'll use like this kind of vegetable glue that's food safe to glue on to put on the top, the cap. And then so what you want to do is you want to cut at the shoulder, but you don't want to cut into the actual wrapper because what will happen is it'll actually unravel the cigar.
Okay.
So, can I see the cutter?
The cutter.
as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to try that.
Yep.
And so are there different ways to cut, like the top of it?
Yeah. So there is the punch cutter he has there, and so the punch,
Oh.
you can literally just kind of punch into it, and it'll take out the circular like cut.
Yeah.
And then there's also a V cut. I don't have a V cut with me, but
I didn't bring a V.
Yeah, but essentially it's like it V's into the top.
Okay.
And that's kind of a more foolproof method of cutting. So it's really hard to screw that up. So
So like when cutting the tips of these, is like a certain way you cut it, like more flavorful? Does it impact the smoke?
in my opinion, it can. And so with a straight cut, you're essentially cutting all of it off. So you're gonna get like all that flavor.
Okay.
And then with a punch cut, depending on the size of the punch, those punches come in different diameters. So the smaller diameter punch, it'll kind of concentrate that flavor.
That makes
and
sense.
so-
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So this cutter is Davidoff Duo Cut. So it's hard to see, but it actually has two different size.
Oh, I see.
So this
Yeah.
one's the larger size, and if you twist it the other way, you can see that
Smaller one comes
little
out.
smaller.
Okay.
It's not easy to perfect cutting the cigar properly with a straight cut.
Right.
So to be honest, I prefer the punch.
That makes sense.
You have other challenges when you use a punch, but for me, those challenges are less than what you deal with when you're using a straight cut.
Right. Okay.
I absolutely enjoy smoking cigars, but I'm not perfect with the straight, and so I've more often than not cut a little more than I'd like to have taken off. So
Right.
I prefer the punch for that reason.
Okay.
They do make straight cutters that help you not screw it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think on a prior episode you had one, right?
Yeah, the
Was it
Dumbarton tobacco.
the
and
Dumbarton?
Trust. Yeah, it's called the Guillotina de Saka, and
Yeah.
so that one, it's got these little grooves on it. So actually, for this cigar, it'd be hard, but for like cigars that are that ring gauge and above, it kind of gives you a guide, and it actually it's impossible for it to go through since it's got these little grooves that stop the cigar from going all the way through.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
So it prevents you from cutting too deep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is the main concern when you use a
Right.
straight cut, right?
Very
Perfect. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and Maddy, if you want, I can light yours for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's two different kinds of lighters. There's the jet flame lighter, which he's using, and I'm using the soft flame lighter.
Okay.
And so so jet flame is a lot hotter, so you want to keep it kind of away from the cigar.
Oh.
Same with the is that jet flame being a little weird?
Yeah.
You want mine?
Yeah.
Right, the back? Oh.
Yeah. I love the Davidoff, the Slim 7, but it's very cranky.
Oh.
You know, they're
Yeah.
they're very sometime. I love it because it goes with the St. Patrick's Day theme and the green, but yeah, see, this is perfect.
And
So
you
can
just-
you is there too much of a burn with the one that you just had or that one?
With this one, so really, if you see what I'm doing, I'm kind of just toasting the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with this one, where it's just kind of keeping it right above the flame and toasting it. And then I like to kind of
Yeah.
blow into it. So you see how it's like kind of amber on the outside, but it's still black?
Yeah.
So when you blow into it, you want it to be all amber.
Okay.
And so I'm just kind of rotate the cigar back and forth here.
And how do you know when it's good to go? You don't need to keep
Yeah.
lighting
see,
it.
It's getting more amber.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's still black in the middle, and so I just want to keep going at this until...
Yeah. See how yours is now completely red.
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Okay. I'll wait for you guys.
And with a soft one, it takes a little bit longer.
And is this something that you have to like relight over and over again?
It depends. So for me, when I'm at the lounge,
Mm-hmm.
there may be a football game on, there may be a basketball game on, but I'm almost always kind of watching the TV a
Yeah.
little bit, always engaged in conversation with folks in the lounge.
Yeah.
And what that does is I lose track of the cigar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that occurs, they make fun of me. I'm like a constant relighter, right?
Okay.
Because I lose track. I don't puff consistently.
Right.
And so I'm always relighting,
Okay.
right? And so,
On that note,
I walk in and
sorry.
guys are like, handing me the butane, the can of butane. They're like, we know you have to refill. You're going to have to refill your lighter.
So if you have to like relight constantly, does that like harm the flavor at all?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
since these are handmade premium cigars, they're rolled by hand, and sometimes because of that, it can lead into construction issues, and so some cigars just can't keep a light, and so sometimes one of the symptoms of a poorly constructed cigar is that you always have to keep relighting it, even if you're like smoking it. But sometimes I'll smoke a cigar and it's just I can't produce any like smoke.
Okay.
So I've definitely had like bad cigars like that before.
That makes sense. And you don't inhale.
Right.
Do not inhale.
Do not inhale.
Do not inhale.
Okay.
So basically what you're doing is I tend to just moisten the outside a little bit.
Okay.
And then take a little bit of the smoke, draw it into my mouth, and then release.
Okay.
And what you're trying to do is to pick up and again, it'll take time, but what you're trying to do is just pick up any kind of flavor notes that
Okay.
you may be
That makes
tasting,
sense.
right? Like it'll take a while. Like first cigar, like you're
You don't think I'm going to become an expert right now?
I'm hoping that you do,
Shame.
and we're focused on providing that expertise, but
Right.
we're not sure how this is going to work out.
An advanced method is called retrohaling, and have you smoked before, or have you like vaped or anything?
No.
No. Okay. So retrohaling is when you bring the smoke into your mouth and you exhale it through your nose, and then
Okay.
you get a lot more flavor that way.
Interesting. It sounds like that's not something I'm going to try right now.
No, you don't have to try it, but
I'd like to say, you do get more flavor, but you also get more tears,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Every time I do it, and I blow that smoke through my nose, like my eyes start watering.
This
And
is
so
a great cigar because this is very
It's
smooth. There's
light,
no
yeah.
spice. Yeah. So
Every time I
That's so
retrohale,
funny.
I cry. So
if you want to try it, let me know and I can teach you
No,
how.
I think I'm okay right now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Cheers. Cheers.
I love that.
Okay.
So this
Interesting.
cigar is from Davidoff. They're made in Dominican Republic. That's where the company's based. And so the filler is Dominican tobacco. And so the binder is Dominican. And then the wrapper is called Ecuadorian Connecticut.
Okay.
And the reason it's called Ecuadorian Connecticut is because there's Connecticut shade tobacco that's grown in Connecticut. But all those tobacco farms are disappearing now.
Oh.
And so they grow Connecticut seed tobacco in Ecuador. So that's why it's called Ecuador, Connecticut.
So I'm super excited to hear like your first couple of thoughts.
So I feel like I can smell your smoke too.
Okay.
And I feel like yours is definitely heavier than
Okay.
like what I'm tasting and smelling of mine.
Okay.
Would that be like a right assumption?
So you feel like you feel like you can smell the smoke from mine more so than the taste from yours?
No. I can smell and I can taste mine. But
Okay.
I like when you first started smoking and I wasn't touching mine yet,
Yeah.
I could smell how heavy yours was.
Okay, gotcha.
And is that just like mine looks to be like thinner than yours, right?
Oh no, yours is
mine thicker.
yours is a 40 ring gauge is the diameter.
Okay.
Yours is a 43.
Uh-huh.
What is that, millimeters? I guess. 40.
So it's so the ring gauge is it's 1/64th of an inch. So,
Gotcha.
So what it is if it's 43, that means it's 43 divided by 64.
Gotcha. And I have a 48.
And this is the
Gotcha. Okay.
38.
So his
Yeah. Okay.
So
This is even-
his is what, more like a Lancero.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of.
very very thin. So it's the same. These three, the blends are the same,
Yeah.
but Chris is going to get a different flavor profile because with with a smaller ring gauge, he's tasting more of the wrapper, which is where most of the flavor is.
Flavor-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So he's going to get a different experience than we're going to get, right? Because his experience, he'll taste more the wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
You'll taste a little less of the wrapper, and I'll taste a little less yet because my ring gauge, they get larger as they go across, right? So mine will have less of that wrapper taste and more of the binder.
Okay. Am I supposed to like know kind of the scent it's supposed to be giving off right now? Because I'm not. I feel like I'm just tasting very woody things
No,
right now.
wood. Yeah, that's wood. That's one of the flavor
Yeah.
profiles
Okay.
of that cigar is wood.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for this one, and this is one of my favorite cigars when I don't have a lot of time, right? Or if I want a cigar to end the evening and I've already had a couple, because it's light to medium, right? It's a very light and creamy taste. But I think the intended flavor profiles for this Davidoff Signature is cedar wood, cream, and barley, right?
Oh, okay.
So if you taste the cedar and the light and creamies coming through, that's kind of actually a pretty good job on your very first cigar because that's the profile.
Okay.
You just missed out on the barley.
Yeah. That's okay. We'll get them next time.
Next time.
And how often are you supposed to like discard the end?
So different rules of thought on that, right? Like I tend to over ash, right? That's
Okay.
another thing people like constantly get on me about. Only because I don't want to have the potential issue of it falling and causing all kinds of making a mess, right?
Right.
I'll go as long as possible.
But some people, yeah,
Okay.
like Chris
Yeah.
is completely comfortable. That's like driving me crazy a little bit. But I'm like,
Okay.
it's him. But yeah, it's all in a lot of it's personal preference.
Okay.
Right? Like some people say, well, for your optimum smoke, how often are you supposed to take a draw? Well, I don't know. Like the cigar is enhancing your conversation and enhancing your ability to unwind and relax, right? So I
Okay.
can't answer that for you,
Right.
If I'm by myself in a lounge and I'm very stressed or I'm very busy, I may take a puff every couple of seconds, right? Because I'm looking for that relaxation.
Right.
On the flip side, if I'm engaged in watching a game or I'm engaged in conversation, the opposite's the case. I lose track of puffs, and next thing you know, I'm out.
Right. Okay.
And so that answer is different for everyone, not only for every person, but for every opportunity.
Right.
Because you're going to have different moods and different things going on.
If you do puff too often, like every 10 seconds or under 10, like essentially under 30 seconds, the cigar, if you puff too much or too frequently, the cigar can get super hot.
Oh. Interesting.
And you also, to Chris's point, if you puff too frequently, that's when you really see indications of poor construction.
Yeah. And,
Right.
and tar.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you can really tell when you have a poorly constructed cigar, because once
Okay.
it burns warm, you start seeing all the imperfections. Sometimes you'll see cigars will start burning on the side, which is
Oh.
not good, burning unevenly,
Uh-huh.
or just completely not burning on one side or the other.
Right. Okay.
So that's when you really see a lot of construction issues.
Okay.
But everyone is at different times and spaces in
Yeah.
their evolution,
Mhm.
and so in general, the line and the cost of the line will give you an indication of the construction, right?
Okay.
This Davidoff, if you light it properly and you puff it properly, it'll give you a great smoke from beginning to end.
Okay.
Look, Chris has tapped his ash, but you can see it's burning very evenly.
Right.
You've tapped, but yours looks fine as well.
Yeah. It's
And
pretty
that's
even.
also a testament to how you light it too.
Okay.
So both Steve and I kind of lit it properly, because if you don't light it properly, that can also cause uneven burn as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you talked about like the cost, and you'll be able to see if things are poorly constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like a hobby, and is it an expensive hobby, or is it like pretty expensive?
Well, you're probably talking to the wrong person.
Yeah.
But
I've seen your collection.
But I can tell you. So this stick, price for a signature, Chris. $22.
22 to $26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah. No, and the
It's-
Davidoffs probably start around $22, right?
Yeah, it's considered high end, on the higher end of the spectrum.
So high end. But again, when you think about the evolution in people's changing palates, most people aren't going to start with a Davidoff, right? They end up working their way up to Davidoff, right? And I've been at this for a while. Chris has as well, and I prefer, if I'm going to sit down and try to use the cigar as a mechanism to relax, I'd rather have a nice cigar as opposed to buying in quantity, right?
Right.
So I'd rather buy fewer and buy something nicer than to go out and buy a couple of boxes because I can get them cheap, right?
So is this also a relaxing thing for you, or is it more so just like a social aspect?
Both, really.
Both?
Yeah.
Both.
Pretty
Both.
heavily both?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like for Chris and I, we're both super busy, right? So when you think about being able to cut away and go to the lounge,
Right.
like we're constantly on text. Like
Right.
he's like, yo, at 2:00, I think I can go out for a couple hours, right?
Right.
Can you meet me? And I'm like, yes or no.
Yeah.
And then when I get to the point and I have a couple hours, I'll do the same thing, right?
Right.
But I think the thing that's really great about the lounges, once you go to them a few times, is that you get to know the regulars. And you can almost be certain that whenever you go, there's going to be a couple of friendly folks that you can have a great
Right.
conversation with.
Okay.
And Steve and I met at the lounge, too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you guys remember your first cigar?
Oh, God. That's quite a story. So,
Okay.
back in high school, my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I went to the gas station. We got gas station blunts.
Can you tell a different story?
And so, no,
Just make one up, man.
oh, no, and
Just
then,
make-
no,
we're not-
I smoked it and I inhaled. I inhaled my first cigar, and I got
Oh.
sick to my stomach.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was when I explained that I was coming on this podcast to do this, everyone's initial reaction, oh, you're going to get sick, you're going to cough. So why is that? What is in there that makes you get sick if you accidentally inhale it?
So, in cigars, there's a part of the leaf that's called the ligero.
Okay.
And the ligero is, I believe, it's when the tobacco plant is grown, the ligero is towards the top, and that's where it gets a lot of the sun, and I believe that's also where it gets a lot of the strength. So ligeros, there's a lot of strength, and nicotine, so it's high nicotine content. And so when they blend these cigars, there's the ligero, and then there's the velado and the seco, and those are the different parts of the tobacco leaf. And so ligero is strong, so it has different portions of ligero versus the velado and the seco.
Okay.
And so some cigars have more ligero, so it's a lot more higher nicotine content.
Oh.
And so some people are more sensitive to that nicotine content, and there's particular cigars are just stronger,
Yeah.
and then
Gotcha.
you can get sick from it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to what Chris is saying, just being cognizant of bringing the smoke into your mouth but not inhaling
Right.
is half the battle, right? When
Right.
you're first starting out, especially if you have folks that smoke cigarettes, or they're so used to inhaling, and that's not a good thing when it comes to cigar smoke. I mean, I to answer your question about the first cigar,
Yeah.
I probably, for me, my first job out of undergrad, I took as a corporate lender at a bank in Baltimore. And so I joined a group of guys, senior lenders, that were much older than me, right? I was a 22, 24-year-old
Right.
kid. These guys were, late 30s, early 40s, very experienced.
Yeah.
And they were out with customers in the evenings, entertaining, dinners, and after dinner activities. And they were always drinking bourbon and smoking cigars, right?
Right.
So I didn't really have an interest in the bourbon, didn't really have an interest in the cigars. And so, after a while, my mentor pulled me aside and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I just don't have an interest in that stuff. And he's
Right.
like, yeah, you really need to have an interest in that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So the first cigar that I had was actually a Davidoff Grand Cru. So I didn't have a perspective on, like Chris's story. I didn't even really know I didn't even know they sold cigars at the gas station, right? And
Okay.
so I had a Davidoff, and so I'm like, not bad. and it was probably a few years before I picked up picked it up consecutively. I mean, like on a regular basis. And then I would say over the past 10 years or so, I've been more of a regular.
Okay.
And so I can tell you, I started with Davidoff, probably went to a bunch of other less expensive lines, right? And then have kind of evolved and grown my palate. And so now kind of at the back at the Davidoff, that's kind of my
Right.
line, right?
Okay.
Like almost any time, probably 3/4 of the time, you can catch me with a Davidoff.
Very cool.
But that's just my personal preference.
Yeah.
But I like a lot. I mean, there are a lot of really awesome manufacturers out there right now that I enjoy, and I enjoy a lot of them.
Very cool.
Yeah. What about so just like I'm always curious, like generationally, right? Like what do folks, the younger folks, what are their thoughts around cigar smoking? Like your friends and your generation, like are there conversations? Are there people, what's kind of the conversation around that?
So I feel like my age range hasn't really gotten into that like point of their lives yet where like we're starting to dabble in cigar smoking. I feel like I've learned more so like obviously from you guys, but like I was introduced to it. Like my father-in-law loves to smoke cigars. My brother-in-law, Nick, doesn't. He's got terrible asthma. But I like my dad also as well. So like my generation just really hasn't gotten into it yet. I feel like we're moving there. I have a few friends that are kind of starting to get into it, but like nowhere near as, what you guys know and have been doing for a while. I know you started right out of college. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just like in the wrong field and I just don't know many people that are smoking cigars yet.
Yeah. I would say what's interesting, I went to a Davidoff event last Friday night at Georgetown Tobacco.
Oh, cool.
And I really love getting an opportunity to go back to Georgetown Tobacco. I went to Georgetown undergrad, so
Yeah.
I always feel like some kind of way when I get a chance to go back on the
Right.
hilltop. So it's very nostalgic for me. But it was an awesome event, about 2 hours. And one of the things that was really cool, I was sitting at a table with a group of guys, and there were 3 college seniors in there, and they were avid cigar smokers, right?
Interesting.
So I was like, this is really cool. So I got their perspective. I'm like, where do you go to smoke cigars when you're in college? And like, how do you determine which one of your buddies are interested in doing that? So
Yeah.
it was a really awesome conversation. And they shared that they spend most of their time like outside their dorm,
Right.
just, smoking cigars and having a time, opportunity to just decompress a little bit. And then they make it down to the shop whenever they can.
Okay.
But I thought that was a really cool and engaging conversation because you don't really think about college kids smoking cigars. I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool.
I don't think there was much of them at VCU, at least that I was aware of.
Yeah.
But Georgetown, I mean, the stress.
I hear you. So what are your thoughts about your next experience, your next cigar? Do you plan on doing that? Do I have to drag you out again? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that I just never got into it because I didn't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have anyone in my life that like I'm actively around 24/7 that is an avid like smoker of cigars. So no, I think this is a cool experience. I think too, it's like very social, and I think that's what I would vibe more. I don't really particularly find smoking calming, but I think for the social aspect, that's cool. Like I could see how you would come in here and just like have a night and watch whatever on TV or talk to all of your friends that are in the area. So I like it. You wouldn't have to drag me out to do it again, but I think next we got to work on Gabby. Which
Absolutely.
will never happen.
So as Maddy mentioned, I've known her since she was middle school,
Elementary school.
elementary school. She's a good friend of my daughter, Gabby. And so I grew up around Maddy, and so we've always had an opportunity to stay in contact, stay in touch with her, and so just a great experience. I mean, when I think about all the great times we had with Gabby and Madison growing up, there are a couple of stories that just crack me up, and I Maddy knows I'm going to bring this story up. I think everybody already knows this story, but I always have to tell it. So I think maybe what, 9th grade?
I think honestly it might have been 8th grade.
Let's say 8th grade. My daughter Gabby and Maddy are in 8th grade. We're all at home, and Maddy comes over to visit with Gabby. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
It's all good. Until I realize, I'm like, well, Maddy, how did you get here? Like, how'd you get here? And do you want to finish? Like, how'd you get to the house in 8th grade?
You know, I'm the youngest of 4, so as you can imagine, my parents were kind of just like over it. And my grandma taught me how to drive at a very young age because she lived on like a dirt road and like kind of out in the country, so there was no danger. But yeah, one day they were like, "Hey, can you run to the grocery store for us?" My grandma was watching me, and it's like, "Yeah," and I just went and visited the Mans, and I was like, "Hey," and they were like, "How did you get here?" I was like, "I've got the keys." They were like, "You need to go home right now. We're gonna come pick you up. Like, take the car home. Are you out of your mind?" I'm like, "What?" So it's funny now, but in the moment, yeah, I don't know what anyone's really thinking.
So let me just recap. The child's 14 years old. She's at my house because she drove herself the what, 5 or 6 miles from her house to my house.
Yeah.
14, 8th grade. I'm like, that's really cool.
I was an excellent driver, still am.
Right.
They trusted me.
So absolutely love that. Love that. And Maddy knew I was going to tell the story, so there's no surprise there.
It's a running joke that he, anytime like we're in the same space together, he brings it up. But in particular, with anyone new that we're around. So when we met in London, we were sitting at dinner at this horrible Italian restaurant. And I said to my husband before, I was like, I bet good money Mr. Steve's going to bring up this story. And Nick's like, oh, no way, no way. We're sitting down, maybe 20 minutes into the dinner, and Steve goes, so, I love Maddy. And let me just tell you what happened when she was younger. And I was like, pay up. So Chris got to hear for the first time. I think maybe it was Nick's first time I'm hearing that. I'm not sure, but honestly, it's one of the funniest stories that like I hear you recap it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad.
Let's talk about that Italian restaurant.
I love.
my God.
Well, let's set the stage. So like I said, I love Madison, right? And so Chris and I had planned a 5-day trip to London to just hit all of the cigar lounges. We had a great time. It was an awesome 5 days. But somehow I think either through a conversation I had with Gabby or maybe even a conversation directly with Maddy, she was going to be in London with her husband and her sister at the same time. So we were like, okay, let's link up one night and have dinner. And so we did. We let Maddy pick the restaurant.
Okay.
And somebody else, please pick up the story from here because
I didn't pick
this
the
is where I
restaurant.
drop off.
Well, technically I did pick the restaurant, but it was like raved about, this tiny little Italian spot. I don't even know where it was, but everyone was just like, this is like one of the #1 spots you need to go to, yada, yada. I'm like, done, booked. We were excited. I was looking at the menu. I was like, okay, like, it might be good. Let's go see. But we got there and it was, the tiniest spot with the most amount of people crammed into one spot you could possibly have. And like they brought out all of our meals. The bread was fantastic. It's kind of hard to mess up bread, but that was the only part of our dinner I think that was good.
Well, what's funny is I think you ordered the appetizer, but we didn't specify it, and so we got like a smaller plate, and then the other tables got this huge plate of like appetizers, and we were like, oh.
Well, they were trying to explain to us how to order initially, and we were all like, what? Like, we can't hear you. And like, I think he also had some sort of like French accent on top of that, and so we were like, going in blind.
The funniest thing, and I still will think about this about once a week, is so we ordered this venison pasta, and the pasta is like this sort of like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like dark purple black pasta, which you don't see often.
No.
And then Steve just kind of looks at me and goes, what is that? And I think you had a bite, and you were like, no, I'm good.
I looked at the plate and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
It tasted fine. So I think with that.
No, stop.
It didn't.
It tasted fine to you.
Bad.
I didn't. I don't eat brown. I don't eat black pasta. First of all, like, so when I saw it, I was like, no. I'll eat another plate of bread before I eat this black pasta, right? So I didn't eat it. Chris, I think, had it and thought it was decent.
Yeah.
Right, but he got over the look and the texture, and I think it was probably decent. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But somehow I don't know. We were like plates were spinning.
Yeah.
And I ended up eating somebody else's dinner that night. I don't know how that happened.
There was one dish. It was decent, but it was also like the size of my pinky finger. It was, what kind of meat was it?
It was a
Crab.
crab.
It was like a
Crab.
crab, cacio e pepe. And we were like, this was like the only meal out of all. I think there was 5 of us, and we were just like, oh, can we get a couple more bites? Like 2 pieces of noodle per
That's
person.
relatively expensive restaurant too, I think.
It was.
Yeah. I think they were just trying to do too much. I think if it was just like an Italian restaurant that was like simplified menu and just simple ingredients, it would have been a better experience.
Yeah, and it was also, to Maddie's point, it was interesting though because it was hard to hear, and the waiter, although we were in London, the waiter did have a French accent, so I wasn't tracking everything he said. But to Maddie's point, they were basically trying to tell us that we buy the animals, right? And then we cut them up and we try to use all of the animal before we go to another animal. And I'm like,
and it was kind of like tapas.
When he was explaining that, I was like, I want to just get up and leave.
We were hearing that. We were like, did we hear that right? Like, is it too late to bail? We were really confused. Like, he walked away and we were all like, so who caught that whole thing? Because no one up front did.
But 3/4 into that meal, I was just like, we should have just gone to like Olive Garden or something.
I don't think they have them in London.
No, they don't. I looked.
Would have been better. Oh yeah, you did look.
Yeah, we looked it up. So that was just hilarious. But like I said, I mean, we're super glad that you were able to join us.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or thoughts around the cigar? And
I mean, the cigar is good. I don't actually hate it, which is surprising. I'm not a big smoker, so I think that this was a really pleasant experience, and I didn't get nauseous. I didn't cough. Everyone can eat it.
It's beautiful.
But if you guys had one cigar that you've either ever smoked,
yes,
or you have one in like a reserve that like it's going to be bomb, which one is it going to be?
Oh, Chris has his answer and mine.
Oh, really? Okay. What is it?
So I don't have it in my possession, but it's one I want to try.
Okay.
It's a Cuban. It's called the Edmundo Dantes. It's for Cuban cigars, they have regionals, and the regionals are like that particular. You can only buy it in that particular country.
Oh.
And Edmundo Dantes is a Mexican regional, and they only produced it in certain years. So I have to go find like a vintage box somewhere. Which
are they done like being produced?
Yeah. So whatever's out there is just like out there, right? That's the final stock, and supposedly it's a very nice cigar.
Yeah.
And so
I don't even want to know how much that's going to cost to find.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll keep it at that.
Yeah. So for me, I have 2 that I want to try this year. The first, Chris actually is on the hunt for it. It is a Cohiba Behike 58.
Okay.
So the 52, the 54, and the 56 have been out for a while. They just released a 58 ring gauge.
Okay.
And I'm partial to the larger ring gauges, so I have my eye set on one of those. Chris is looking.
It's essentially like the flagship of Cuban cigars.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys have someone that like you go to? That's like
Typically,
hunts around.
I go to
you can buy them
Chris.
You can buy them online, or you can also get them through like auction websites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then for me, the other cigar that I'm going to definitely try this year, celebratory cigar, is the Davidoff Oro Blanco 111. Just came out, the absolute flagship of the Davidoff line. Now I have that one. I'm just waiting for the proper occasion to light that one.
What's that
up.
occasion going to be?
I don't know. It'll be at some point this year.
Okay, it's this year though.
I do know that, and I also know that it will be somehow tangentially related to some sort of milestone for my company, Stogie Hub, right? So as you guys know, the website launched at this point about 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm adding users every day, and so that's really exciting. There's a lot of buzz, And so, it really is an opportunity for cigar aficionados to come in and transact and buy and sell accessories amongst
Right.
themselves, right?
Right.
So people that create a user profile on my platform will be both a buyer and a seller, right? So if
Cool.
you're an aficionado and you've got an extra light or extra cutter, and you want to maybe get something else, you can use the platform for that purpose, right? And
That's
so
cool.
again, it's only been active for about 10 days, and so really looking to build users and just get the word out there and make certain that people are aware of the platform. Because as best I can tell, as it relates to that platform, I don't think there's a similar platform strictly dedicated to aficionados.
Right.
So I feel like it addresses a need in the market. So for me, now it's really just a function of making certain that there's awareness,
Very
right?
cool.
I do know that in the U.S., there's an estimated 9 million cigar smokers. And so
Oh,
if you
shit.
think about running the economics and the numbers on creating a business around that, you don't have to capture a ton of that market in order to have a viable product and a viable company.
Right.
And so I'm running as hard and fast as I can to see how much of that market I can get.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
So I'm really excited about it.
And to Steve's point, just last year, I believe the U.S. imported roughly 375 million cigars.
Oh, wow.
And so
Yeah.
think about that, 375 million divided by 9 million. That's like each person's buying a lot of cigars.
Yep. And what I know about folks that are buying a lot of cigars and are very active, they're also, as they elevate their game around their palate for the cigar, so too does their palate evolve for the accessories, right?
Okay.
So the things that I use, the things you see on this table, I never would have even thought about 5 or 10 years ago. One, I couldn't afford them, right? But so I think that there's an evolution for every smoker that as they elevate their palate, so too is their desire to kind of elevate their game as it relates to accessories. And so my platform is geared towards those folks.
You should put together like a starter kit. I'd buy that.
I like that idea. See? It's
There you
great
go.
to have these conversations
Like branded,
because
branded.
I like it. I like it.
Starter
So
kit.
again, so for people that want to know more, you can always go to my Instagram at stogie.hub, or you can go directly to my website. It's www.stogiehub.com. And then we also have this podcast goes on to our Burn and Learn channel on YouTube. The episodes of the podcast will soon also be resident on the Stogie Hub website. So that's one of the first enhancements that'll launch on the website. So we're looking forward
Also
to
on
that.
Spotify.
Yeah, we're also on
Nice.
Spotify and Apple.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you don't want to watch the video but you want to listen in the car, you can also reach Burn and Learn on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. So with that, any parting thoughts?
One thing I forgot to mention, we're talking about flavor profiles, and so
Yep.
with cigars, it's kind of categorized into thirds. So like the first third and the second third and the last third, they're gonna have different flavor profiles.
Okay.
Some cigars is kind of like consistent, and other cigars you'll kind of get different flavor profiles every third of the cigar.
That's cool.
I wanted to mention that before we end the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Guys, thanks for having me.
No, so we're glad you can make it. We'll go ahead and wrap up again. Always want to give a big thank you to our friends at Rebellion Cigar Room in downtown Leesburg. Justin and James always take care of us, so we're happy to be able to use this venue. I also want to say thank you to Michael at Heirloom Cutters for allowing us to demo his cutter. A beautiful piece. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap. And we look forward to, we've got a number of really great things lined up in the next couple of episodes. So stay tuned. And we hope to be back to you soon. With that, we'll tell everyone good evening.
Thanks.
Take care.